Good afternoon, everyone. How are we doing? How did you guys like MoneyShow University? Awesome. Great. Well, as Jordan said, my name is Aaron West, and I'm here today, ladies and gentlemen, because I'm passionate about your future. I was in your shoes just a blink of an eye ago, 18 short years ago. And I just want to share a few words of wisdom with you. But before we do that, I'd like to give a huge round of applause to our sponsors, Circle, OIC, TD Ameritrade, you. Thank you for your support. We really appreciate it. So when Kim asked me to do the closing remarks, I was trying to think of something inspirational and profound to give to you all, and I really didn't have a whole lot that was coming to me. So I started to ask myself, if this was 18 years ago and I was still in college, what would I want to hear? Well, I'd like to think that I'm a pretty practical guy, and for me it would have been really helpful if someone would have given me some advice that I could actually do something with, or at least a few guiding principles that I could use. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that's what you're going to get today. A few simple principles that you can use right now. Principle number 1, don't wait for opportunity, create it. To illustrate my point, I'd like to tell you my story and how I ended up to be the president of MoneyShow. Just before my college graduation, my parents called me at school and they asked me what I had planned on doing after graduation. After 4 wonderful years at college, I didn't have the slightest idea of what I was going to finish or what I was going to do when I got out of college. So I moved home, I moved into my old room, and I was at Mom and Dad's house once again. My parents were fortunate enough that they were able to retire early, so that meant that when I arrived home, it was me and Mom and Dad. All day, every single day, because after all, I didn't have a job. You can imagine how excited I was to be home with them. After having all of the freedom in the world to do as I pleased in college, I was dying to get a job, make my own money, and most importantly, get out of their house. I spent what felt like an eternity sending out resumes using online job boards, hoping that somebody would call me back, and I got nothing. I had to get out of the house. I was dying. So I put on a suit and tie, and I took my resume, and I started walking door to door, cold calling businesses, introducing myself to people. And it certainly wasn't fun. What compounded it was that it was June in Sarasota, Florida, so it was a little bit warm in a suit and tie knocking on doors. One day, after dropping my resume off to what felt like 100 different organizations and figuring that I couldn't take it, one more day, looking for jobs online or knocking on doors, I went to a temp agency. You know, they've got temporary jobs where you'll do secretarial stuff for a week or something, and I told them, look, guys, I'll do anything. I don't care. I'll dig ditches. I'll do anything. And the recruiter said that he didn't have anything for me right then, but the night before, during dinner, his wife mentioned that the place where she worked may be thinking about something in the future. She wasn't really quite sure, but he said, would you be interested if they have something? I said, absolutely. I'm just looking for an opportunity. So the next thing I know, I'm invited for an interview with a woman named Susan at this company in downtown Sarasota. Susan and I chatted for a few minutes, and it was really more small talk than it was an interview. And she explained in no uncertain terms that they didn't have a job available. But as a professional courtesy to the woman that she worked with, the recruiter's wife, she wanted me to come in and talk to her. So I was a little bit let down. Just as we're wrapping up the conversation, this blonde-haired woman comes darting in the door and introduces herself. It's Kim Githler, who you all have seen many times today, the owner and CEO of MoneyShow. Kim asked me if I knew anything about the stock market. It was the summer of 2000, and for the previous 2 years, you could pick nearly any stock and make money. The stock market was going vertical. So I told her that, yeah, I'd been trading stocks in school, which was true. I was trading. And she asked me if I knew anything about options trading, and luckily for me, I'd done a bit of covered call writing, so I knew about options. Our conversation lasted maybe 2 minutes. It was really just a brief introduction. She thanked me for coming in, and she asked Susan, who was sitting there next to me, if she could speak to her outside of the room for a moment. So, 30 seconds after the two of them walk outside, Susan reappears in the room and says to me, "Well, we'd like to offer you the job." Wait a minute, what job? I thought you told me you didn't have anything, but you're meeting me out of a professional courtesy for one of your colleagues. She said, yeah, that's true, but we'd like to hire you. You got to give me a couple days. I'll figure out something that you can do. Just come back and you'll start next week. So in June of 2000, I started passing leads to the sales team at MoneyShow. About 6 months after I started, we needed somebody to create the front end of our websites. And so I was good with computers, and I started doing that, even though I knew nothing about HTML and creating websites. Then we needed somebody to help with tech support, so I picked up that responsibility. Then I went on to our customer service department and started managing the call center. And this was back in 2003 when email marketing wasn't really a thing yet. And one day, the phones weren't ringing, and I was really bored. And since I was familiar with options trading, I wrote an email promoting all of the options speakers at one of our upcoming events, and I sent it to options traders on the email list. And the phones absolutely lit up. We had 5 and 6 people deep on hold waiting to register for the event and purchase paid events and book hotel reservations. It was a really big success. So from then on, when the phones would get quiet, I would write another email campaign and send it to a certain segment of the list. And Kim had the bright idea at that moment that, hey, this guy is more of a marketer. Let's put him in marketing. So she put me in marketing, and I headed that up for 5 years. Then I went on to business development to do deals with our media partners, and for the last several years, I've been fortunate enough to be the president of MoneyShow. But you see, the funny thing is about all of that time and all of that experience was that I didn't know that I was creating opportunity for myself. What I did know was that if I consistently worked harder than I had to, that if I went the extra mile, nothing but good things would happen, and they have. So that leads me to the next principle: pay attention to detail. You never know who's watching. This story is about my father. My father was just out of college and he was looking for a job. He had a friend that was going to be a shopping mall manager in Norfolk, Virginia, at a new unopened regional shopping center. My dad's friend knew that he was looking for a job and asked if he'd like to come out and help with the grand opening to work as a gopher and do little things, to do setups and help them with transportation of people, that sort of thing. So he arrived at work and began helping them to prepare for the grand opening of the shopping center. As one of his tasks, the marketing director asked him to put a light on the podium for the mall's opening ceremonies the next day. So on the stage where the owner's going to be speaking the next day for opening ceremonies, there's a podium, a little bit dissimilar to this one. It just had 4 legs and you could see through it. But my dad's got this light on the podium, and he's running the wire for the light under the lip of the podium and down one of the legs to hide the cord, when this unassuming gentleman in jeans and a t-shirt approached him and asked him what he was doing. My dad told him he was wiring the podium for opening ceremonies. And the guy in the jeans asked, "Why are you going to all of that trouble to hide the wire?" So he commented, "Look, I don't think the owner of this multi-million-dollar shopping center wants to stand in front of hundreds of people tomorrow morning with a wire hanging off of the podium." After hearing the answer, the man just walked away, and my dad never thought anything of it again. Later that afternoon, his friend that gave him the job found my father and said that the owner and developer of the shopping center wanted to see him and that he had a 3:00 appointment. So, my dad knew who the owner was, at least knew his name, but he'd never met him, didn't know what he looked like, and had no idea why he wanted to see him. So at 3:00, he went to the appointment, and when he walked in, he saw the man in the jeans and t-shirt who had asked him about wiring the podium, and he quickly realized that that was the owner and developer of the regional shopping center. During that meeting, the owner said to my father, verbatim, because I spoke to my dad about this, he said, "I've been watching you work. I must say that I was impressed that you would think to hide that light cord, but more than that, I was impressed that you would take the time to do it." And the next question would change my father's life forever. The owner of the shopping center asked, "How would you like to go to Merritt Island, Florida, and open a regional shopping center for me?" So, for the next 25 years, my father opened and managed shopping centers all across the state of Florida. Pay attention to detail, ladies and gentlemen, because you never know who's watching. That leads me to my last and final principle, which is work hard, stay positive, and stick with it. You might be thinking about these two stories, well, that's great. They both had a random situation and they got lucky. You're absolutely right. But for me and my father, those fortuitous events were just the foot in the door. They weren't a substitute for hard work. In fact, those events were just the very beginning of years' worth of effort and years' worth of hard work. To succeed in anything that you do, there are no shortcuts. You're going to have to do things you don't want to do. You're going to have to cold call potential clients, wire podiums, deal with unhappy customers, navigate office politics, fire people, work on weekends, stay late, come in early, on and on and on. But in all of those things, if you stick with it, and if you work hard, that's where you learn. Trust me when I tell you that you'll see the most personal and professional development when you push yourself through the times when you think that you just can't take it anymore. Push yourself through that project that you don't want to do. Push yourself through the challenges that make you very uncomfortable. That's the good stuff, and that's where you're going to grow. So, ladies and gentlemen, to recap, don't wait for opportunity to create it. Pay attention to detail because you never know who's watching. Work hard, stay positive, and stick with it. And whatever you do, for the love of God, give it everything that you've got. People are always watching, and the people who know the difference will always recognize your hard work and will seek you out. And most times, it'll be when you least expect it. Thanks.